You're starting to record, just so people know we are starting to record. We're going to put live in. Give me for a second as we get ready to go live on Facebook.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh, now he decides to.
Dogs.
Scary.
My dog's asleep, right?
Okay, everybody. We're going to give folks a couple minutes to start before we begin tonight.
Oh, you just sent me a link. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, there's a link and people should be able to share. It's live on Facebook right now. So we're going to wait and see as we let people come in. Participants start to come into the meeting. We're a few minutes early. We are going to start really actually beginning this meeting at 5 o'clock. So we'll wait for a few seconds as people start to get on. And for people who aren't speaking, anybody who's not speaking of the panelists, when you're not speaking, try to mute your mic.
Okay, now you got to guide me through that. How do you
No
mute
problem.
the mic?
If it's okay with you, then I will go ahead and mute you. There's usually a little.
Show me how. Wait a minute. I'm gonna ask my nephew because he showed me how to mute it. Because this is his computer, so he would know how to mute. 7. Does it have a lock on there?
Yeah, I can mute you as the host, but it would be good if your nephew was able to tell.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna ask him to show me how to. I'm not on here yet, am I?
Yes, you're Miss Green. I actually muted you because we're going to start. So while you're muted and we begin, then your nephew would be able to show you actually all the little basics about Zoom, which you're paying. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for taking their time out on this important weekend for National Day of Mourning for one thing, and now for this extremely important webinar featuring Free Leonard Peltier. We have 2 speakers today, and the first speaker I'm going to introduce, who's really going to update us on the Free Leonard Peltier case. I first wanted to introduce myself, which I forgot to do. My name's Sharon Black. I'm representing the Prisoner Solidarity Committee, the People's Power Assembly, and the Publication Struggle La Lucha, who are basically sponsoring today's sort of regional webinar from Baltimore, Maryland, but also people from around the country are encouraged and have been free to join in this webinar and learn a lot. And it's especially important on this weekend. So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking. I'll introduce both of our speakers when they get ready to speak and explain, we first are very, very honored to have Zola Fish. She is a member of the Choctaw Nation. She's from the San Diego Socialist Unity Party. She is an organizer with the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee and many, many coalitions, including the Committee Against Police Brutality and also the San Diego chapter of the People's Power Assembly. So she has been very, very active, obviously, in defending Leonard Peltier, and she's going to give our folks in this region an opportunity to learn about Leonard's case and also what we can do to support them. And there'll also be a chance for
No,
questions
mute.
and answers during that period. So I am going to pin actually your video, Zola, and mute mine, and the floor is yours. And thank you so much for taking time this weekend.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm going to give a update on who Leonard is. I'm also going to give some history about what happened leading up to why Leonard is in prison. And then afterwards, I'm going to read a statement by Leonard. Okay. Leonard Peltier is a citizen of the Anishinaabe and Dakota Lakota Nation who has been unjustly imprisoned for more than 44 years. We're actually going on 45 now. To the international community, Peltier's case is a stain on America's human rights record. Amnesty International considers Peltier a political prisoner who should be immediately and unconditionally released. To many Indigenous peoples, Peltier is a symbol of the abuse and repression that they have endured for so long. What led up to Peltier's conviction? In the beginning, it began in the early 1970s on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, South Dakota. Tensions were high when tribal chairman Dick Wilson and the traditionalists began to escalate. Wilson was a pro-assimilation, meaning he believed Native people should discard their traditions to join mainstream American society. Traditionalists, on the other hand, felt it was important to maintain their culture and land base. Wilson favored those who were pro-assimilation by giving them jobs and other assistance, while neglecting the needs of the traditionalists who often lived in the worst poverty. The growing conflict prompted traditionalists to join together with the American Indian movement, AIM, a civil rights group committed to uniting all Native peoples in an effort to uplift their communities and promote cultural pride and sovereignty. In response, Wilson joined with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, to destroy the movement the agency procured as a threat to the American way of life. The result was disastrous. In 1973, local traditionalists and AIM occupied the Pine Ridge hamlet of Wounded Knee to protest the many abuses they were suffering. This is the same site where less than 100 years earlier, the horrific Wounded Knee massacre was perpetrated against over 300 Lakotas, mostly women and children. Instead of listening to the natives' grievances, the governor responded militarily, firing over 250,000 rounds of ammunition into the area, killing 2 occupants whose deaths were never investigated. The occupation lasted 71 days and ended only after the government promised investigations into the complaints. The investigations never materialized and conditions on the reservation worsened. After Wounded Knee, Wilson outlawed AIM activities on the reservation. Traditionalists were not allowed to meet or attend traditional ceremonies. Wilson hired vigilantes who called themselves Guardians of the Oglala Nation, or goons, to enforce his rules. The 3 years following Wounded Knee are often referred to as the Pine Ridge Reign of Terror, because anyone associated with AIM was targeted for violence. Their homes were burned and their cars were run off the road. They were struck by cars, shot in, drive-by shootings, and beaten. Between 1973 and 1976, over 60 traditionalists were murdered. Pine Ridge had the highest murder rate in the United States, and scores more were assaulted. In almost every case, witness accounts indicated goon responsibility, but nothing was done to stop the violence. On the contrary, the FBI supplied the goons with weaponry and intelligence on AIM and looked the other way as the goons committed crimes. As the situation worsened, the traditionalists asked AIM to return to the reservation to offer protection. Leonard Peltier was among those who answered the call. He and a dozen others set up camp on the Jumping Pole Ranch at Pine Ridge, the home of a number of traditional families. On June 26, 1975, 2 FBI agents in unmarked cars pursued a red pickup truck onto the Jumping Pole Ranch. They were looking for Jimmy Eagle, who had gotten into a fist fight and stolen a pair of cowboy boots. Gunshots rang out while mothers fled the area with their children. Other residents started to return fire. A shootout erupted between the FBI agents and the residents. Law enforcement immediately mobilized. Within a couple of hours, over 150 FBI SWAT team members, Bureau of Indian Affairs police, and goons surrounded the ranch. Peltier helped lead a small group of teenagers out of the area, barely escaping through the hail of bullets. When the shootout ended, AIM member Joseph Kilswright Stunts lay dead, shot in the head by a sniper. His death has never been investigated. The two FBI agents also lay dead, wounded in the gun battle, then shot at point blank range. Years later, through a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, it was documented that the FBI had been closely surveilling AIM activities on and off the reservation, and had even been preparing for paramilitary law enforcement operations on Pine Ridge 1 month before the shootout. The two agents had possessed a map that highlighted the Jumping Bull Ranch and labeled the family's storage cellars as bunkers. According to FBI documents, over 40 Native people participated in the shootout, both AIM and non-AIM, yet only 4 persons were indicated for the deaths of the agents. 3 AIM leaders, Dino Butler, Bob Robidoux, and Leonard Peltier, and Jimmy Eagle. Butler and Robidoux were the first to be arrested and tried. The jury found that Butler and Robidoux were justified in returning fire given the atmosphere of the terror that existed on Pine Ridge during that time. Further, they were not tied to the point blank shootings. Butler and Robidoux were found innocent on grounds of self-defense. The FBI was outraged by the verdict. They dropped charges against Jimmy Eagle so that, according to their own memos, the full prosecutorial weight of the federal government could be directed against Leonard Peltier. Peltier, meanwhile, had fled to Canada, believing he would never receive a fair trial. On February 6, 1976, he was apprehended. The FBI presented the Canadian court with affidavits from a woman named Myrtle Pourbear, who claimed she had been Peltier's girlfriend and had witnessed him shoot the agents. Peltier was extradited to the US. However, Pourbear had never met Peltier, nor had she been present at the time of the shooting. A fact later confirmed by the US prosecutor, despite Pourbear's subsequent declaration that she had given false statements under duress, having been terrorized by FBI agents. Peltier's extradition was not reversed. Leonard Peltier was returned to the US, where his case was transferred from the judge who had presided over the trial of his co-defendants to a different judge, one who made rulings that severely handicapped the defense. Also, the FBI had carefully analyzed the Butler Robidoux case, and this time they were determined to secure a conviction. The cards were stacked against Peltier, and a fair trial was out of reach. Myrtle Pourbear and other key witnesses were banned from testifying about FBI misconduct. Testimony about the Pine Ridge reign of terror was severely restricted. Important evidence, such as conflicting ballistic reports, was ruled inadmissible. The red pickup truck that had been followed onto the ranch was suddenly described as Peltier's red and white van. Agents who described the vehicle as a red pickup truck during the Butler Robidoux trial could no longer recollect their previous testimony. The jury was sequestered and surrounded by US Marshals at all times, leading them to believe that AIM was a threat to their safety. 3 young Native witnesses were forced to falsely testify against Peltier after being detained and terrorized by FBI agents. Still, the US prosecutor failed to protect a single witness who could identify Peltier as the shooter. Instead, the government tied a bullet casing found near the bodies to the alleged murder weapon, arguing that this gun had been the only one of its kind used during the shootout and it had belonged to Peltier. More documents showed that more than one of the type attributed to Peltier had been present at the time. The FBI had intentionally concealed ballistic reports that showed the shell casings could not have come from that weapon. The agents undoubtedly followed a red pickup truck onto the land, not the red and white van driven by Peltier. Compelling evidence against several other suspects existed and was concealed. Unaware, the jury convicted Peltier. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. So after many of the above abuses surfaced, the Peltier defense team demanded a new trial. During subsequent oral arguments, the U.S. prosecutor admitted, "We can't prove who shot those agents." The court found that Peltier may have been acquitted had evidence not been improperly withheld from the FBI. However, a new trial was denied on the grounds of a legal technicality. In 1993, Peltier requested executive clemency from then President Clinton, and intense campaign was launched, supported by Native and human rights organization members of Congress, community and church groups, labor organizers, and celebrities. Even Judge Heaney, who authored the above court decision, expressed firm support for Peltier's release. The Peltier case became a national issue. He was denied everything till now, 44 years. Everything gets denied. He was denied. He asked to be moved from where he's at in Florida to closer to the Pine Ridge Reservation. He was denied. He's been denied surgeries. He's in very poor health right now. And our only option for him right now is clemency from the president. Now I'm going to read a message from Leonard about the day of, it's the Leonard Peltier message, Day of Mourning 2020. Leonard writes, "Greetings, my relatives, friends, loved ones, and supporters. First of all, I want to thank you for the privilege of being allowed to express my feelings about this day of mourning, as we call it, and day of Thanksgiving, as the rest of the US calls it. Sometimes I am at a loss for words to express all the thoughts I have going on in my head after 45 years of imprisonment. I do want to express my appreciation for all our ancestors before us who fought so hard that we would live today. I want to express my feelings of remembrance for the ones who were overpowered by the weapons of war coming from Europe and all the pandemics they faced. Though we have been attacked by the invaders from Europe over and over in every way possible, and everything that has been done to destroy us, our culture, our traditions, we still survived until today because we are an expression of the Creator's will and an expression of the Creator's truth. We are a manifestation of that truth, that all mankind should live within the boundaries of those laws. There is nothing that come from Europe that has made this portion of the earth a better place to live. But like all nature, we have survived, and nature continues to survive through mankind is on the edge of destroying itself. The truths that our people spoke of, the need to live in harmony with each other, the Creator, the Mother Earth, the respect one another's approach to spirituality, when expressed by non-Indians, becomes a sensation around the world. We must continue to speak our truth, to live our truth, and to support one another for their lives, our survival. The most powerful weapons that we can obtain is knowledge of truth and love for one another, and the practice of that truth and love. We must unite and work together every chance we can embrace all others who are of like mind and willing to work to correct this worldwide pandemic of greed and selfishness that has infected the whole earth and mankind. On this day of mourning, let us remember our relatives before us who fought every challenge imaginable that we might survive, and our prayers say, thanks for not giving up. Thanks for giving your lives that we might live. And to all of you out there, I want to say thanks for not giving up on me in my quest for freedom. May the Creator bless you in every way, your brother always in all ways. In the spirit of Crazy Horse and Resistance, Leonard Peltier.
Yay. Free Leonard. Free Leonard Peltier. Thank you so much, Zola. I'm going to go to Ms. Van Green, but before doing that, I just wanted to make sure that people who are new to Zoom craziness, is what I call it, you can go to the little strip down below, and there's something called Q&A. It's a little bit different than some of our planning meetings where everybody just gets to go and you have to address your questions. You just push on the Q&A, type out what your question is or your comment, or you can use the chat button, whichever you feel most comfortable with, please do. So get your questions ready and your comments, and we'll be calling on you. I want to next introduce our next speaker. We'll go to obviously the important questions and comments that people have. Ms. Green, before you start, let me get you up here properly and make sure that you have your I think we have you up there, which is very, very good. I am going to make sure that you are not muted. You are not muted. Okay, so let me tell people a little bit about Ms. Van Green, who has been very active, an active member and an organizer with the Prisoner Solidarity Committee and the People's Power Assembly here in Baltimore, who we met through an important campaign that, and frankly, she's been waging for 19 years, or close to 2 decades, basically. Her husband, Duryea, am I pronouncing that name wrong? I'm sure.
Duryea.
Yeah, has been falsely incarcerated now. And what's come to light more recently is that the person who is responsible for that incarceration is a cop who just recently was charged with kidnapping and corruption, which anybody who knows anything about Baltimore, and all you Baltimoreans know this for a fact, is that the Baltimore cops are corrupt. They're very poor, and many of them have now been charged with all sorts of things, from drug peddling to stealing from people, etc. So this actual cop is the one who put Miss Green's husband behind bars, and she has been fighting for 19 years, and we are fighting with her at this point. So we felt it was important, at least for people locally, to know about this case as we take additional steps after this call to really get Mr. Green released, because he's unjustly imprisoned. And there's many different strategies to that, and I'm sure people will say something in the chat, but I felt like it was important to say something about Miss Green, who has, probably gone through, I don't know, more than anybody that I can think of. Of course, then when you hear Leonard Peltier's case, it's very moving. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Miss Green to talk a little bit about the case, whatever she feels like sharing with us right now, because there's a lot to share. And then we can get to people's comments and questions. Thank you for Ms. Green for being here and joining the Zoom world, I call it.
Thank you so much for introducing me, Ms. Sharon. I first want to say that my name is Van Green. I am the wife of Duryea Green. I have been fighting a battle and also a struggle with trying to get justice for him and get him free. He has been falsely accused of a crime that he did not commit. Baltimore City police officers, detectives, and the force, the task force, drug force, they're known for being the bad guys. They have been, some of them have been arrested on the task force, gun task force, for plotting drugs and guns on innocent people that has just won their settlement in court through the federal courts. However, the sergeant, the police officer that arrested my husband at the time, he was a Baltimore City police officer, which he still is a Baltimore City officer, but he now got promoted to sergeant. Well, he was just arrested for kidnapping, extortion, armed robbery on an innocent man that was doing work on his property. We're talking about a man that was trying to make an honest living for his family and himself, and he took advantage of using his badge and his rights against this man because doing free work for him to get his money back. So again, it makes you wonder, him doing his job as Baltimore City Police sergeant at the time. So do you kind of mix the two up with what he did to this innocent man versus his everyday life being of working for the public, which is serve and protect? Did he do so? He did not. He used every force against my husband on accusing him of a basketball shooting of two teenagers that were shot in the ankle and in the knee at the time. Well, now the two young men, now they are grown. They met my husband through the jail system, and they told him that, well, actually, let me go back. One of them at the time said in the courts, and he stood in front of the judge, he stood in front of the state's attorney, and he stated, it was too dark, I could not see. Detective James Lloyd made me basically say that this gentleman was the person who did the shooting. At the time, the description of my husband was 5'8", medium built with hair. At the time, and still is, my husband is 6'2", 260 pounds, does not have hair. They gave so many names, and then when the officer, James Lloyd, came to my home 5 times, he had the name wrong. He eventually went to motor vehicle to go get his driver's license, and then when he came to my home, still had the name incorrectly. So he did a false warrant, and then he came back the last time. He came and taken myself and my 3 children and put us in a cage for hours until they were able to locate my husband, which my husband does construction work for all over. And they took me to, after me pleading to let me and my children go at the time, because I don't know what's going on, because they're not talking, they're not telling us anything. So with that being said, they eventually took my children to school, put me in a police car, well, unmarked car, took me to my husband's job, and that's where they did the arrest. But I think before they did so, they had gotten the right warrant, because they had a wrong illegal warrant. But when they arrested him, they changed the warrant to his real name. So when we got in court and we hired a lawyer to represent my husband, which he did nothing. So at the time of them, now we're moving forward into going to court. During that time, the court had to go into recess at 2 o'clock. We came back to court at 2 o'clock. I was then arrested because they said I threatened the witness. You have the right to face your accuser. You have the right to know what was said, but they couldn't pull any evidence. So I was released from the courts. They reset my husband's court date because of the confusion that was going on inside the court on that day. But that night when my husband was arrested, I hired a investigator, also hiring a lawyer. The investigator found that it was also a gentleman arrested that night with a weapon. They let him go because they said, we have the guy who did the shooting. So I was a little confused of, at the time, why was my husband being accused of a crime that he did not do versus the evidence that they had did not match. Also, witnesses that said that he, one of them said that had children. I was afraid because I don't know the law. I was forced to say that Mr. Green did it. The other other 2 witnesses said that he was not the gunman. He was not the shooter. So at this time, we're struggling now to try to just get justice for him. We have been through 2 attorneys, which did nothing for him. So now we have fought every effort to reach out to the mayor, the governor, the highest court, my councilman, my the district that I am in, no response. It's like everybody just dragging their feet. But again, it's not going to make me give up because I'm going to keep pushing. And not just for my husband, I'm going to fight for every innocent man and woman that deserves to be set free. Because, you know, we have people that are innocent, and the jail is so overcrowded with people that are sitting there for child support, for tickets. You know, I feel like, why are you holding these people if you expect them to pay bills for, or tickets, or some sort of whatever you know, miscellaneous you have arrested them for? How would they pay both ways? To be locked up, and then you still want them to pay whatever the fine is that you have against them? But I am here to fight for every man and woman that has been falsely convicted with these officers that are doing whatever they want to do because of their badge, and they are pushing their authority to do whatever they want to do.
Thank you, Ms. Green, for sure. And we're going to open up to discussions and comments. So if anybody would like to put anything in chat or question and answer for either of our panelists, for either of our speakers today. And again, thank both of them tremendously for taking time out of the weekend. That's, you know, as Leonard put, is a National Day of Mourning for Indigenous people and all of their supporters. But at the same time, it's also a family day in which many people get together and have obligations. So thank everybody. I wanted to ask the first question of Zola, and maybe somebody that's more skilled than me can put in chat whatever Zola's answers are. Is there, and this is the question, is there any movies, films, or videos that you could recommend that we could watch around Leonard's case? Or
yeah, there's a documentary. Am I good?
Yeah, go ahead, start.
Okay, there's a documentary called Incident at Ogalla. I think it's on YouTube. I think you can watch it on YouTube. But it's Incident at Ogalla. And it's actually directed by Robert Redford. It's an old film, but it tells the story. Yeah.
I'm typing that in the chat right now. Stop. Okay, we have another question, which I will. Okay, this is a question for Zola. I was wondering if she could talk about how the FBI tactics used against Leonard are commonly used in state attacks on Indigenous organizing. The suspected FBI murder of John Trudell's wife and child come to mind.
Yeah. Okay, with John Trudell, it wasn't just his wife and child, it was wife, children. I think there was 3 children, and his mother-in-law were murdered on Pine Ridge by the FBI. They threw a Molotov cocktail into their small house, and they all burned to death. Trudell was out, John Trudell was out with the AIM members at the time, and he was not there. It was his mother-in-law, his wife, and I think 3 young children. They all burned, and that was common though. There was drive-by shootings. I think Pine Ridge had the original gangster drive-by shootings by the goons. And the FBI actually gave the goons the guns to shoot, and I think that's common. You know, we have tribal council people that are just, you know, assimilating, and I think that FBI though, I mean, even out here where I'm at, I have to go down the BIA road just to, you know, go to the doctor, and they're everywhere. Homeland Security is everywhere out here. We have, on the reservations, we have local tribal police. We have Border Patrol. They're flying around right now. I can hear them. We have Homeland Security police. We have the sheriffs. You know, and they're all right here. And there's like 3 reservations that I live at right here. And they're all over. They're all over. Border Patrol is horrible. I think Border Patrol is worse on the reservations right now than the FBI is. I think they're one and the same actually. But I mean, it's the same story over and over, not just with the Indigenous peoples, but in inner cities. The police are acting as the FBI agents, you know, same as, you know, this case. The police are corrupt. All of them are corrupt. I think Border Patrol is the biggest problem out here right now. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Zola. I was going to ask the question of both Zola and Ms. Green, because I know that COVID is a huge, huge problem everywhere, and especially in the jails. And I'm glad that Zola raised the Border Patrol and the cages, that immigrant workers are forced into. And I wanted to ask specifically to Ms. Green also about her husband's health conditions and what she is hearing in terms of the COVID crisis in the Maryland jails. And following that, Zola, sort of what you're hearing, which you started to touch on in terms of the COVID crisis, both for Indigenous people on the reservations, in some ways, how it's affecting people, but also, in the immigrant detention centers. So the floor is both of y'all, whoever wants to start first to answer that question.
Well, so my husband, in the course of the years of him being incarcerated, he found out that he has cancer. So it's, and then fighting with the COVID that's in the jail, mainly on the East Wing is to where he's being housed at. I want to say on account of both hands, how many guys has been taken out of the jail, not just the diagnosis of COVID, but they have been taken out because it has gotten that bad. So the visit stopped this year, March. It was no more visits March the 3rd of 2020 of this year due to COVID. So the only other way that they're getting COVID inside the jail is through the guards. Well, the guards are not being tested properly as they should to enter the facility, which I think they should be tested regularly. My husband said they're not bringing in the materials they need to clean the jail. They're not sterilizing the jail. They only test them when someone gets sick, and then that's when they want to test all of the men in the jail. The 5 guys that were very sick from COVID, well, they're now sent home because 2 of them were very sickly. I mean, to the point death. So they taken him out of jail, but they moved all of his hotel to a side that had no working water. The doors on the cells were not locking. They had guards staying. They said there were so many guards on his side because the doors weren't locking. They were more worried about them escaping and more worried about them being kept without using the phone. They barely can use the phone because they can't move so much every day. But when he was able to call me, he was telling me I need to reach out to the mayor, which I did. I've been calling the mayor's office. I have been emailing. I had to every single day. I've been reaching out to everyone to try to get to the issue of this COVID, of them testing these guys, cleaning the jails, giving them the materials that they need. They're not really letting them order at the commissary. They're backed up on giving them their commissary to buy what they need because of the COVID. At Jessup detention, Jessup institution, they have to go outside to another building to get they have to go to get their commissary from another side of the jail. So now they're not moving because of the COVID. Now the numbers is going up. They're really not letting them do anything. So supposedly tonight at 6:30, they're letting them call. He's calling me on Skype. So I'm going to see. I'm just playing by ear to see if he's able to do so. But they're not. Also, the jail is not taking my husband out of the jail regularly to go get his treatments. As we speak right now, I'm fighting to get him out of the jail again to go get treatments. But they are giving him medication, but it's not the medication that the doctor at Bon Secours prescribed to him. They're just giving him what they want him to have, meaning the jail. So now it's a doctor, so to say, that he's there to look over the guys that has a deeper concern of health condition. But my husband said he asked him to show him some kind of paperwork that he is an outside doctor, where he's been a doctor at, what hospital he came from, and he has not yet to show him those things yet, but he is able to prescribe the gentleman there medication. He's treating them. They say, my husband said, the capacity of the infirmary, they're not even letting them come in, because it's like 6 guys that's in there right now that has to be housed because they're short of breathing. They're in so much pain where they can't walk. So it's like almost to say, what do you do, and where to begin to get help, to get these the gentlemen and women the help that they need, almost to say, in the jails. Like, where do we begin?
Thank you, Zola. Did you want to?
Yeah, there was COVID in Leonard's ward,
Mm-hmm.
and Leonard he was in quarantine for 2 weeks. He did not catch anything. I think it's pretty clear now, but he's got prostate issues, and he's been, he's got a lot of underlying. He's got diabetes. He's got,
Mm-hmm.
He still suffers from lockjaw from the tetanus that he got. And so we're worried about him. It's the same conditions as Ms. Green described in Leonard's thing. He said it's dirty, it's not clean, the guards are coming in, the cooks are coming in, not being tested, and then on the reservations, out here we're fine, but like the Navajo Dene reservation, is annihilated from COVID. Trump sent ventilators to Russia instead of to the Dene Navajo reservation. And I've lost count of how many have died on the Navajo reservation, but it's bad. But out here, we're okay. I don't know any Indian that has COVID.
So Zola, how old is the gentleman that you're speaking of?
Oh gosh, how old is Leonard? I'm not even sure anymore. 60. 68, 69.
My husband is 53.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, to all the families and the larger family, the Indigenous family, but also to all the family, Baltimore City, everywhere, that's been so impacted by this epidemic, this pandemic, so to speak. And it's heartbreaking to hear what's happened to the most oppressed, whether it's been people in detention camps and prisons who should all be free, every single person, to people, that have built this country, whether it's been, on the backs of people who were enslaved or on the backs of the native indigenous lands. So a lot to think about there. Anyhow, go ahead, Ms. Green, and then I want to make sure that we're getting close to the end. Smoke is happening in San Diego.
Carl, sorry, Sage. Sage. Okay.
So anyway.
I want to also put may address something, ladies, as well. So my husband has ran across a couple of guys. I want to say more than 7 guys so far that they don't have family. So it's like some of them, they may have moved, or maybe they had changed their numbers, or some sort of something has happened. But what I have been doing for those guys, my husband give me their phone, give me the information. I have spoken to them as well. I have went personally to the homes to go and see if I could reach out to the families. I have been successfully with reaching out to some of the families that the guys in there could not have reached out to them by phone. And I've gotten some of their phone numbers to been able to give to my husband to pass on to them. But two of the gentlemen that are sickly there and they're up in age, I have reached out to maybe 2 or 3 of the family homes, and they no longer there. And in one family, the whole family that where he was living, that the only family that he had, they all passed away. And then I reached out to someone else, a friend of the family, that he told me that he gave me the sister's information that does not no longer live in Baltimore. So he was able to contact her through the neighbors, the friend of the family. So again, you have families, you have these guys and women that are that's being housed in the jails that doesn't have family or can't get to their family to send the message, hey, can you help me? This is what's going on. And you have a person like me that's been fighting for just my husband. You know, as I stated earlier, I'm fighting for all of, them. But, had it not came to my husband's situation, I would not have came to be so educated into fighting so hard to get justice for all of them. It's not safe at all in the jail. And then I want to go back and don't take the focus off of, these corrupt police officers. I've been reading, I've been looking up about these officers. And then what I hear people say, the officers need to be retrained. How do you retrain an officer that has been in the service, has in the reserve? They're not trained to stand down. They're just trained to shoot, aim, and fire. It's not such thing as retrain an officer. Some of them have been in the service, they're militant, their mind settings, they fear in the service, so they fear with their job. It doesn't separate the two. How do you separate the two from being in the service for so many years? Now you are a law enforcement. How do you separate the two? How do you, I have so many questions that needs to be answered. And I speak for the public as well. But these officers, sometimes when they come behind me, I'm even afraid to even roll my window down because, just because they're officers, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they left home to. I don't know their mindset is. I don't know what they went through in their time, and then somebody may have made them so angry that they say, that person was able to get away with it, so I'm going to take that on the next person who may not know the law, who may show them fear. 9 times out of 10, when a cop pull you over, you don't show fear. They just make you so angry to the point that they want to see if you're going to act up so they can have the reason to arrest you, search your car, not find nothing, for them to plant something in your car or on you and that's how the false arrest comes apart. But again, I have so many questions for our mayor, and again, because of the election, I'm so glad that it's over.
I think Ms. Green, you kind of faded out there a little bit. But at any rate, we'll give you a chance to fade back in a second. We have about 5 minutes left on this call. We wanted people.
That's been falsely convicted.
Okay. Okay, great. I didn't know if we cut you off by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. Okay.
We promised people that there'd be enough time if people wanted to write letters to Leonard Peltier or just, spend the rest of the time doing what we do to get ready for Monday. So I just wanted to draw people's attention to a couple things on chat. One is that Miranda put up a link to Leonard Peltier's message to the National Day of Mourning. So people go over to the chat section. You can give them that, or you can follow that link, or you can copy and paste it somewhere else so that you have it. Along with that, I also put in the chat is that people should consider subscribing to Struggle La Lucha, because much of this that we're talking about tonight are articles and videos and YouTube and Facebook, etc., on all these important issues. Also, even though it's an important thing to us, if you can send a few dollars to Venmo at Solidarity Center, I put that up there. It's good because we're all learning and we're having to get more technology, which costing us more money. And it doesn't mean like with our center, the Solidarity Center, that we can shut it down and the landlords are still collecting a rent from us. So we need whatever pennies people have. It's very, very helpful. So I did want to make a pitch, or go to our PayPal that, you know, you could go to Solidarity PayPal too. We can put up a link on that, or, you know, send old-fashioned, old-style checks. But anything that is helpful, you know, anything that people can give is helpful. One of the curves of the campaigns that we have to begin to take in earnest, which we've been trying to catch up with, is people in the community who do not have Zoom access. So we have some of our younger members who are much more savvy about teaching people how to get onto Zoom, setting up the chat room so that everybody can participate, because there is an uneven playing field out there when you look at it. And some people who have the kind of jobs where they can do it at home, they've been trained in this, but many low-wage workers, including many of our own members, you know, if you are a server in a restaurant, or if you work in a hotel, you are unemployed, you're not doing remote work. You are just plain out of work and unemployment, and no one ever gave you a chance to be trained on how to be on Zoom to participate in meetings. And unfortunately, we have to be very COVID. We don't want any of our members to end up with COVID. As much as possible, we want to do it very safely. And then the last thing on the Venmo part of it is, and Ms. Green and Alec can talk about this, and Andre and myself, we are part of a small internet radio station that has been mostly focusing around the prison issue, Prisoner Solidarity Committee, which is another reason we need to raise funds, because we need to give a small donation to keep up our end of that radio station. So I just kind of wanted to end with this question to Zola, and if anybody else really feels bad they didn't get a question in, quickly put one in. And somebody says, I can't see anything in the chat. You have to go over to the more button, well, or go over to the chat button, hit on chat, and you should be able to bring up chat. Thank you for asking that, Ben Coleman. And actually your question is kind of funny, because we can see your question. Hopefully you can see, you can scroll up and see the other things. And maybe somebody can repost it and send it particularly to Ben Coleman. So the last thing is allowing Zola and Ms. Green to have the last word. Is Zola, in terms of Leonard Peltier, is there any last words and the things that you think are important for us to do to support his case, actions that we can take?
Yeah, I mean, you can call the White House. You know, there's that number, it's online. You can also write the White House and ask for clemency on humanitarian needs. Hopefully soon we'll be able to go in and ask for another compassionate release. We asked that, it was denied. We have to wait a certain amount of time to go in and ask for another compassionate release. Yeah, but right now it's just clemency through the White House.
I'm muted. Ms. Green, do you want to say anything else?
Yes, I'm asking anyone from their hearts that can you support the PPA, because we are fighting hardly for not just our family and friends, but for your family and friends, because my sister and brother that's incarcerated is your sister and brother, and your sister and brother that is incarcerated is my sister and brother. So we're just asking for any kind of donations to help to keep this organization going, so we can fight as hard as we continue to do so. And we're going to keep on fighting, because this is what we do to accommodate the ones that have been gone away from their loved ones, their family and friends, their parents, and that nature. Just support us, because we need the help.
You're cutting off, Ms. Green. We didn't get the last couple words. It's probably the internet connection. It's probably the internet connection.
Okay, go ahead, speak again.
Go ahead. I said we didn't get your last words.
If you guys can help us to help you, to help this nation. We're going to continue to fight. It's a matter of us sticking together to support one another. It's not about just us. It's about each and every one has been falsely convicted of a crime that they did not do.
Thank you. Both of you said the ending better than anybody could. Thank you, Zola. Thank you, Ms. Green. And
Sure.
look forward to the next session for sure. Stuff. Free Leonard Peltier, free Mr. Green, free them all. Let's get them all home.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon.
Thank you all.